All right. Didn't have my mic, which is no bueno. All right. Can everybody hear me now? Now that I have a mic.
I don't hear anything on TikTok.
Still working on TikTok. All right. How about now? Can you hear me now?
Oh, yes. Yep.
All right. Yeah, now we're good. Sorry, everyone. Like I said, it's been a long week. I actually quit smoking cigarettes this week. So I've been really kind of off, and yeah, that's what is it? It's like day f 4.5 for me right now, since I quit smoking. So, yeah, don't mind me if I seem a little off, and if I've been, I haven't been posting a whole lot either, just because it's, life is stressful enough, and then adding in quitting smoking. So, but yeah, anyways, yeah, so takes 3 days only after it's mental attachment. Yeah, um, yeah, it's still, not easy. It's not an easy task. I am on the patch, but we're gonna kind of try to ease into this and get this knocked out once and for all. So, um, yeah, so the weekly sync, 1 p.m. and 9 p.m. Eastern time, Eastern USA time, every single week. We talk for about an hour, and then we pause for 5 minutes, and we repeat the peace, love, unity, respect. We send those positive words and positive vibrations out into the world. And the goal is to collectively try to influence change. We're not trying to change who people are. We just want to show people that change is possible through little changes in your life. I had talked about it this week. By the way, I started doing my blog this week, my Peace and Perspective blog. That is on the website, www.weirdsquared.com. It's on the screen. And we've also made some upgrades to the website. There's more coming. Some new projects that we're working on. If you haven't heard about the Wave is happening on May 16th, where we're going to do the same thing, where we're going to pause for 5 minutes, but we're going to do it at 1 p.m. local time, every single time zone, so that every hour there is what time do we start at 10 a.m.? What's your local time, Tiffany? Because I mean, for me, it's 11 a.m. right now for the stream, but we're gonna pause at noon my time, 1 p.m. Eastern. Pacific time, yeah, so the pause is 10 a.m. at your time. Um, Yeah, so the wave. So it's not the same thing as the Great Synchronization. This will be like a wave of energy every hour, each time zone at 1 p.m. We'll pause for those 5 minutes, and during the entirety of the 24-hour period, I will be live the entire 24 hours, pausing with everyone for those 5 minutes. Um, to kind of give everybody a place if they want to go. You can join as many of the pauses as you want throughout that day. I believe it's a Saturday. So it'll be a pretty good time. Working on trying to figure out what to do for 24 hours on a live stream, but I'm sure I'll figure it out. I might not have a voice afterwards, but then on tomorrow, if you are on, I believe, YouTube or Instagram, I'm going to be talking on a podcast, the Peace Cast, with Nikita. What is Yuri's screen tag, her tag on Instagram? This
Um,
lady named Yuri, she's in Spain. I don't know if she's in here right now. It doesn't look like it. Um, I had spoken with her briefly about a month ago about the Great Synchronization. We got to talking about possible collaborations. Uh, Anonymous, no, we paused at 10 Pacific because that's what time it will be right now. I believe it's only like 8:11 there, or 9:11 there. So we pause in 50 minutes. Yeah, so this lady Yuri, she hit me up, uh, and she's a slightly larger creator on Instagram, and they have this peace cast that they live stream. I think it's like once a week or once a month or something, and I'm gonna be on there tomorrow. It's gonna be at around noon my time. 12:15 my time, which is Central Time. So, uh, the same time as the synchronization would be 1 p.m. tomorrow. If you guys want to tune in, check that out. I'll post some details about it on Facebook today, Instagram, and then uh, coming up, we're going to be releasing all the information about the Missing Piece project. That's a little project that we are going to work with the public on. It is a like a public collaboration, like a storytelling documentary. Um, and we're going to be collaborating with between 500 and 1,000 creators. Well, creators, people from all over the globe. So we'll let you know more about how that's going to work so that people can be prepared for that. Um, it's going to take a while to do that project. There's a lot of gathering of information and things that we're going to need to do, but that is coming up. We have all the details will be coming on our website. So, always check that out. Um, yeah. So, like I said, I was not prepared today. So, I guess I'll just kind of talk about some of the stuff that I talked about in my post this week. I've been researching more and more about the collective consciousness and some of the ideology behind it, some of the, the psychology or this, the actual biology behind it to try to figure out what the mechanics are, the real mechanics behind um, the collective consciousness. Because, we all have the same idea. We all know that collectively we can make a change, that change is possible through our own behavior, and it just takes small changes to influence that, but on a collective scale. But I'm really interested in understanding the mechanics behind it, why it works, and how we can adapt our brains in a way to actively use it every single day more than just being like, oh, well, I believe this. Like, what is the actual mechanisms? Um, I got hung up on this new area called information physics a while back, and I think that a lot of the answers they lie there. They lie in information physics, or the idea that information is its own state of matter. So I kind of lean heavily in that area, but I had learned about these things called mirror neurons, which are pretty cool. And basically, what they are is when you do something like, say, swing a hammer, and you see somebody else swing a hammer, it lights up the same neurons in your brain. And it was discovered in the 1990s by Italian researchers. They were um, doing tests with monkeys, and I thought that was, pretty super interesting for what it is, how our brains kind of interpret um, other people's actions as our own actions. So basically, what that means is that our brain is constantly trying to not only predict but mimic the people around us, and we do it subconsciously, almost unknowingly, and it's literally unknowingly because it's our neurons firing, but we don't actually think about it. So that's kind of why, like, if one person laughs in a crowd, it can kind of instigate a whole lot of people laughing, and then like the worse that, or the more that people laugh, the harder it is to stop. That's kind of how the mirror neurons are or how they work in more of like a public space or a large collective space. So that was one thing that I learned about this week. And then also, I'm always diving into ancient mythology. Um, I think there's a lot of answers to be found in some of the ancient myths and ancient civilizations. Uh, but I think that the reason why we can't seem to grasp um, what they're trying to say through their hieroglyphs and through, what we have left to observe is simply a matter of misinterpretation of translations over, the last 2,500 years. Because it's the same thing that I think about the Bible. I think that there's a lot of truths in the Bible or similarities that are true in the Bible. Just because there's a lot of stories between like the Bible and say the Emerald Tablets, the Epic of Gilgamesh that when you want to talk about Noah's Ark, Noah's Ark is probably one of, in my head, it's one of the more fascinating stories in the Bible because the idea that there was a global flood, one, is pretty interesting. And then two, that a single family saved all these animals and reseeded the population. Well, when you look into it, there's like a 600-year time span where there are mentions of great floods that had happened in like the Sumerian tablets or the Sumerian civilization in Mesopotamia, and in but then also, in like Iran and that area, the Middle East. But they're only 600 years apart. It's like 2900 BC and 2300 BC are where the earliest mentions that I could find were of these great floods. Now, they seem to be talking about the same incident, and localized flooding from like Europe or European Mesopotamia and to like the Middle East could have been possible if there was significant enough flooding in those areas at that time. Um, from rainfall or what it may be, but because of those similarities, it just kind of made me want to dive into it even more. Because if they have the same stories, well, then what else is similar? Well, you start looking at like the symbolism between some of the ancient gods. I know, like I talked about Ma'at this week, which isn't a god; it's like a principle that in order for the world to stay harmonious, people's actions, everything had to be harmonious. Their intentions, their words, like everything had to stay true. Otherwise, it would create that imbalance. Well, then we look at what's going on in the world today and we see all of this misinformation and AI and just a bunch of fake stuff. And we look at all the bad stuff that's actually happening. So then it got me wondering, like, well, what's actually true about that? You know? So anyways, back to Noah's Ark, if we're looking at two different ancient texts that were written close to 1,000 years apart, um, including, the Bible, because the Bible, our current Bible, was rewritten in like 1800s by King James or whoever it was. I think that's some 18 or 1600s. Anyways, um, what happened with the stories is nothing more than a game of telephone. If you tell somebody a story and then they tell somebody that same story, well, they're not going to get it exactly right and they're going to mix up words. Well, then eventually the interpretation and the real meaning and intention behind those words changes as it goes down the line. Well, we see it over the course of just a couple of days, weeks, and months. But when you think about what the Bible is, it's over the course of thousands of years, how the interpretations have changed. And it's not even just how we have told the story over and over and over again, it's also the translations. So when you talk about ancient languages, right? Roman Catholic. Yeah, I mean, there's probably so many rewrites of the Bible. Um, but when you talk about the ancient languages, right? And what we translate and we reinterpret today, there is statistically no realistic way that we would get their translation exactly perfect when we don't really have access to anybody who actually grew up speaking those languages. It's kind of like the same as if I wanted to learn a language right now and I wanted to say German. I was learning a little bit of German for a while with Nikita, and I went to Germany and I started speaking the language that I was taught. I would mess it up horribly because of the same thing of like in America we have slang. Germany has slang. Every culture has slang terms or slang terminology, and if you don't use certain words appropriately, it can shift the meaning. So then it creates confusion and a misinterpretation, and I mean, I don't know if you've ever had a conversation with somebody who doesn't speak the same language as you and you don't speak the same language as them, but you avidly are trying to figure something out. It's not exactly the easiest task. I spent a lot of time working in kitchens, and in those kitchens, there are a lot of Hispanics, and they speak, obviously Spanish. And so I had to learn as much Spanish as I could. Hey, Tom, how's it going? How are you today? Thanks for stopping in. Sorry, I haven't made it into your stream. I didn't, you weren't in here earlier when I mentioned I would quit smoking. So I've been kind of away from things this week, trying to not tear anybody's head off. Um, so yeah, but yeah, so if I went there and I started speaking German, everybody might be confused. Um, oh, thanks for the heart me, Tom. Everybody would be confused because I only know a little bit of it. I wouldn't know the full extent of, what I needed to say. Like, obviously, if I wanted to go into it like a bar and order a beer, I could say, ein Lager, and that's pretty basic. But, there's a lot of other things. I couldn't hold a conversation. Like, I couldn't hold this live stream and in German and have people understand me. One, I just don't know um, a whole lot of German to actually do that. But anyways, it's all besides the point. What it really comes down to is we have poorly translated, poorly interpreted, and poorly just kind of went about ancient history. And then we get settled into the mainstream idea behind any ancient mythology or ancient civilization. That these are the facts because we say these are the facts, because that's exactly where we're at right now. When you think about like Tempe, or however you say it, there's carbon dating that puts it anywhere between 12,500 and 25,000 years old. Well, 12,500 years old was at the end of the last ice age, the dry whatever era. I can't remember off the top of my head, but the last ice age ended about 11,500 years ago. So if they're having issues dating uh Göbekli Tepe, and all the dates are right in the middle of the ice age, well, we know that's not right because they didn't build a fucking temple while everything was frozen. So that means it's possibly older. It could be, older than 25,000, 50,000 years old. So this is all some of those things that, I look at when I'm looking into these, because mainstream is nothing more than a narrative. They are designing stories, they are designing facts, things that aren't necessarily untrue, but they aren't entirely true because they have to control a perspective in order to maintain control over the population. That is a fact. The timeline has been changed by the Catholic Church and somebody else. I cannot remember. Well, I mean, timeline changes are a completely different thing. You know, I'm not saying that I don't believe in the ability to shift timelines or things like that, but right now we don't have any reasonable facts that I'm aware of, and I've done a lot of research on time. I've done a lot of the math behind time, more importantly. And what we run into is an issue of the conservation of energy. This are the second law of thermodynamics. Um, for timeline shifts, the amount of energy that's needed, not that type of, oh yeah, we've transitioned into a different era. We're in a different time in history. Um, so, back on that with some of the more ancient civilizations that we can't carbon date, it made me wonder about like the pyramids. Now, they say that carbon dating for the pyramids puts them at like, 4,000 years old at max, or 4,500 years old. Well, when you look at the Sphinx, you just look at the Sphinx and you look at the erosion on the Sphinx. That's not wind erosion. That's not the same type of erosion that you would typically see in the desert. It's just not. It looks a lot more like running water, and we know that the Nile River had shifted course sometime like 1,000 years ago or something. Um, so the possibility of there being large scale flooding in Egypt could have been possible. And then my question is, if there was large scale flooding for a long enough period of time, would thank you for that friendship necklace, Tom. Would that potentially change the carbon dating of the actual Sphinx and the pyramids? Because if you look at any kind of stone, limestone, anything like that, and remember that the pyramid is supposedly had been covered in polished white limestone, and the same with the Sphinx. If they're porous materials and the flooding happened, say, 4,500 years ago, not global scale flooding or ice age flooding, but it was just localized flooding caused from the Nile and a lot of rain from, after a long period of drought, then you might see an absorption of certain compounds, whatever, that might affect the carbon dating. Now, remember, these are my opinions based off of my own research. None of this is actually fact. I am just, you know, my interpretation of things that I've researched, and I research a lot of uh Watch the Skies Tonight and Tomorrow. All right. Um I research a lot of things. I do a lot of, looks like they purposely messed the head up so it doesn't look how it used to when it was built. Yeah, see, so and that's the other thing. There's a lot of interpretations out there or theories out there about the Sphinx, how it used to have the head of a dog, which would make more sense when you think about everything that they've built. Almost nothing depicts actual heads of men. There are some statues and stuff, but like a lot of the hieroglyphs they have, either like the head of the dog or the head of the falcon or eagle or whatever. um and that's the symbology that I was talking about earlier that just kind of carries across multiple different the Aztecs, the Sumerians, the Mayans, the Egyptians. A lot of the symbolic heads are consistent, and so that makes me wonder. They always talk about higher beings, higher powers, but the symbology behind them also have a lot of the same and similar meanings. I talked about that with the number 13 and the head of the serpent, and then how across multiple cultures they represented the same thing: the chaos, the storm, but right before real change. It was like the chaos that was necessary to implement real change. Because even in the Bible, it talks about that when you talk about Adam and Eve, and then the serpent came, and then they ate the apple, and then they gained intelligence. And I've thought that was, to me, is one of the most ass backwards stories in the Bible. Because why does God not want us to be intelligent? What is it that He didn't want us to know? That's the first thing. Second thing, it's like if the devil was actively actually trying to get us to eat the apple, I mean, is that really a sin to gain intelligence to be able to think critically? Well, I mean, you that's kind of like what our governments do right now. When you really think about it, they actively are trying to suppress information, suppress us from knowing what's actually going on in order to maintain control. It sounds kind of like a similarity, if you ask me, between our government and the Christian religion. And I'm not religious, but I don't knock religion. I love researching religions. I grew up halfways Christian, I guess. I grew up Christian on my own. I went to a Lutheran church, spent some time going to an evangelic church. Was never confirmed, but I did go through like youth group and Awanas and vacation Bible school and all that stuff. So, um, I've done the whole bit. I, and I've also started looking into other religions as well. But a lot of the times, what I'm working on is usually something math involved, something numbers. Um, right now I'm actively working on Riemann's hypothesis and the Navier-Stokes problems, which are two of the Millennium problems from the Clay Institute of Math. So I spend a lot of time working on the math behind that and the theories behind that to try to come up with some resolve. And it's been a pretty fun experience. Uh, you know, Always looking for more information and new fun ways to keep my brain busy when I'm not working on everything that we've been working on over the last month and a half together. We got some, I don't know, we'll have some new merch coming into the store here pretty soon. I know that Nikita has a couple of dope sacred geometry designs that we're trying to work into some apparel. And and then it's just, more peace, love, unity, respect stuff to try to help spread the message because that's what we're all about here. And then also we are slowly working on trying to come up with the uh, global collaboration for organizing like events and stuff. We know that there are a lot of small businesses out there that struggle, and a lot of the reason why they struggle is because there's a lack of discovery through social media, through the internet, and just about any type of advertising is, paid. You have to pay for advertising. If you can't make a video go viral on any platform, you're lucky to reach 600 people all the way around. Well, I'm getting tired of that. Like, I don't think that that's a legitimate way to go about doing business. So, what I'm trying to do is come up with an idea for, these global syncs where people will host a global sync at their business or host it at their yoga studio or wherever. And the idea is to use our platforms and our followers to grow other people's small businesses for them without a paywall, without having to worry about marketing or anything like that. It would just be a matter of you take the time to set up this weekly pause if you can at your business or whatever, where it could be 10 people, it could be 100 people for all you know. And then also finding a way for people to find them, so like say if I travel to Europe and I want to go pause for my weekly pause on Saturday, I'd like to be able to find a spot where I could go and hang out with like-minded people. um, and the idea would be to use the weekly sync as a way to drive business or guests or customers or whatever you want to call it to your local business, into local businesses, for so that small businesses have that extra opportunity to thrive. If you haven't taken an opportunity to check out my blog, I think I've got 5 blog posts up now on Weird Squared under the Peace and Perspective tab. And it's starting off slow, and we're moving into the idea of moving away from the corporate culture that we live in, corporate capitalist culture, and moving into a small business renaissance, where small businesses aren't competing, they are collaborating together and sharing customer bases, simply to help each other succeed. Because, we're always going to be stronger if we work as a group and if we work together. If we're always competing against each other and trying to be greedy about things, statistically, you have a higher chance of failure. And, I see a lot of content creators, a lot of artists, creatives, things like that, that really struggle getting exposure. They struggle getting their stuff in front of the right crowds, the people that, because they trust an algorithm that doesn't actually understand what they're trying to do, what they're producing. They don't like Algorithms only know so much about fine art, but they also only have their own perspective on fine art. So, the whole thing there is kind of skewed, and that's what makes social media kind of terrible. We're so addicted to that constant scroll, that constant need to, be on there and engage. And, if you're a content creator post, you always feel like you have to have that need to post, because even if you miss just one day, well, then your rankings drop wherever you are in this algorithm. They drop significantly and statistically. I've already seen it. I haven't been posting nearly as much over the last week, and my all my metrics have gone way down. People aren't getting the chance to watch my videos, or they're not engaging as much, or I'm just not posting as much for them to engage on. But I just need to make it through this whole quitting smoking and get done with this, and then we'll be back on track to keep doing this. Because we got the wave coming up, so that's still a lot of planning and advertising. I gave myself a little bit of time. It only takes like a month to really push it, but the more people we have actively creating content around the idea behind the weekly sync, the wave, and just putting it out into the world, the better. Oh, hey, Nikki. How's it going? Thanks for joining. Nikki Creative Illustration. You should go check her out. Give her a follow. She has volunteered her creative talents to put together flyers and other graphics for us. So she's a really nice person. Really go check her out. Give her a follow. We'd appreciate that. Um, so yeah, and that's what I was just talking about. It's actually interesting that she popped in right now, because that's what I was talking about. The more people that we get involved in building these little weekly syncs in their own personal spaces, where they have people come and into a physical location with them, and it's going to drive a new type of customer to your business, or a new, just new people in general, new connections. They don't have to be customers, they can be other small businesses, other small content creators, they can be all sorts of people. But the idea is to create the room for collaboration, to get you in front of people that have similar ideals and have similar wants and want to succeed in the same way. Keith on TikTok, I appreciate that heart me. Thank you. Um, if we can create more of those spaces, then we have a better chance of helping these small businesses succeed in a manner that will drop the operating costs for them, and increase their bottom line. I guess we don't want to think like a corporation, but we do have to understand that the purpose behind this is to pull that revenue away from these large corporations and push it out into these small businesses. You know, if you sacrifice $50 a week in your normal spending at Walmart and you go somewhere else and you selectively shop or put it into a small business, and we did that with like, you know, even 1 million people, you're talking about $50 million a week. Like, think about how much money that is every single month. You're, you know, $200 million a month, $600 million a quarter. That isn't going into a large corporation, and you're only having to, you know, figure out $50 worth of your funds right now. So, and it's these small changes that I kind of focus on because, yeah, we could protest all day, we could get, you know, nasty about it, be angry about it, but all we're doing is wasting our energy. We're converting it from negative into worse negative instead of taking it and flipping the idea and converting our energy that we're so frustrated and angry and turning it into something like, okay, we can't coerce the system this way, but we can start working around the system to build something more stable, more sustainable, and all around just better for you know, everybody that's involved, everybody in these communities that are being built. Because I know personally of at least three, if not four, small communities around the country that are being built where they have, you know, quite a few people, and the idea is just sustainability. It's not culty, it's not anything like that. It's just you show up, you hang out on the farm, you know, you grow food, you cultivate food, you learn new crafts, learn art. And that's where the world, I just want to say, I'm glad you are doing this to help raise the vibration. I appreciate that, Anonymous. You know, I really, I really try to just show people that life doesn't have to be so bad, you know, because right now we are in a terrible spot in the world. Everywhere in the world is feeling what's going on. And if we would just learn to remember that there it's only about, you know, maybe at max 10,000 people that are really in the way of change globally. 10,000 people out of, you know, 8 billion people or whatever. So that's a very minute portion. We don't need to beat them. We just need to forget about them, ignore them, and forget about them in terms of their importance. I'm not saying that we forget about the important topics. We don't forget about, you know, the really bad stuff that needs to be, you know, people need to be held accountable for, but we do need to stop putting them in the spotlight and feeding their ego. Because if there's one thing that you'll learn about anybody who likes power and anybody who likes money, they love the idea of being the center of attention in some way, shape, or form. Now, there's a few billionaires that aren't that way, but their companies definitely are. So if we stop spotlighting them and start shifting and putting our time and attention and focus into stuff that actually benefits society, you know, the positives of society, the information, knowledge, creativity, you know, art, all of that stuff, then hopefully we can see a huge shift over the next year, where instead of being a chaos for profit driven society, we become a, you know, peace is a wealth kind of a society where if we can show each other and show the world that peace works as a means of living to the point where it's sustainable without all the extra chaos, and it's not going to affect the wallet because that's what everybody's concerned about, then that's where we need to go. Because, you know, it's just all about showing people a better way. Corporations are always going to be ignorant, so the small businesses need to lead the way. And what ends up happening is if the small businesses end up taking over, those corporations start to suffer. And well, then they only have two choices: they either close or they change. And if, you know, as a small business, you're prioritizing things like employee happiness, job sustainability, you know, living wage, things that actually make not just the consumers, you know, happy because they're getting quality product, but also the people that work there, your staff, your employees. Like we all know that um, jobs suck right now. The structure of a job sucks right now. Everything about the way that our lives work in terms of working sucks. We're, you know, obligated to a job that most of us don't even like going to every day. And it's not that we hate the actual job. If we're in a job and we've been there for a long time, there's a good probability we actually like the work that we do. We just don't like either the people that we work for or the company that we work for, the actual system. So, you know, and but most people don't really separate the two. They always combine the two. And then they start thinking when things aren't going well that, oh, well, maybe there's something wrong with me. If they're treating me poorly, are they singling me out? There's a lot of people that don't understand that if you work for a large corporation, you are nothing more than a line on a spreadsheet somewhere. They don't care about you. You're replaceable. Even for large corporations, if you've been there for 10 years, if you've been there for 15 years, you're very replaceable because your job is designed that way to be replaceable within a matter of weeks. Whether you quit, get fired, die, or anything like that, they can replace you within a matter of weeks. But when it comes to like small businesses, yes, it's a little bit more work to move up or to build a sense of worth at a small business, but it's not because of the small business, it's because of how we're trained. When you think about, you go work at a job at Walmart or McDonald's or any other large corporation, and you kind of fill that role, well, that becomes your identity because you're always working. You're always at your job. And when you're not at your job, you're sleeping or you're taking care of the small things at home. Um, so you're nothing more than that identity. But when you work for a small business, you actually get to be you because every single one of your talents and every single one of your skills then becomes important. It becomes something that can help that small business grow. So now, instead of your identity being absorbed by the job role that you're fulfilling, your identity becomes the job role that you're fulfilling, which is a huge difference. Instead of, becoming one, you're becoming the other. And what that ends up doing then is it creates a more sense of self-worth because instead of just doing this one task, this one thing you're assigned to do, and that's all you're supposed to do, and you don't get any say about the final product down the line, you now have influence. You now have ideas that are impacting the overall outcome of what you're doing in your job. And this is why small businesses are important, and especially for a society or in our communities nowadays, because we are nothing more than a single line on a spreadsheet to somebody somewhere. They don't care about our name, they don't care about our families, they don't care about how much money we make. Small businesses, you get to know the people you work for, not the people you work with, the people you work for. And that you can grow those personal relationships, you can grow those personal connections. Obviously, always trying to keep a semi separate line between personal and professional, but you can develop those relationships. And when you develop those relationships at any job, you'll see that eventually you're going to have more and more say. You're going to start making more and more money. And, you create that loyalty, but it also creates a long-term role, a long-term position. And you're not just the accountant, you're Bill. You are Bill. Who's that? Oh, that's Bill. Not, oh, who's that? Oh, well, he's just the guy that drives the forklift. No, that's Bill. And Bill has a very important role as himself. He's earned that title. He's been there for 10 years. He makes people laugh. He shows up every day. He's late once in a while. That's Bill. It's not just this data somewhere. So small businesses is always going to be a huge topic for me. I've had a small business. I'm a small content creator, a small-ish content creator. I have been, just kind of doing my thing for the last year and a half, trying to help Nikita get to the point where she can just kind of do her thing and do her photography. And I'm not loyal to companies. I'm loyal to my budget. Yes, loyal to your budget. But and even still, if you're working on a budget, because Lyle, I'm pretty sure that's you, Son of God dies. Um, that doesn't mean that you have to cut everything out of your life. It just means that you have to start being a little bit more frugal about the way that you go about life. I just joined. Is it scheduled again today in 15 minutes? Yes. 15 minutes, we will do the pause. So that's where we're at. Hey, Canamama. What is my zodiac sign? Me and Nikita, my girlfriend, are both Libras. So, but we are different ends of the spectrum of Libras. So I am closer to the Virgo side. She's closer to the Scorpio side. So, um, which kind of shows that I'm all about balance. I, hey, you remember me? Actually, so funny thing, Lyle, I remember just about everybody that I've ever interacted with. Um, I make it a point to always try to remember people's faces with their names so that or how I interacted with them. Anytime I run into somebody who's bought clothing, if I've seen a picture of them or, anything like that, I usually remember. I make it a point to. I think that is very important as a person that does any kind of influencing or any kind of just anything, I guess, to be able to. Oh, hey, anonymous, thank you for all those roses. Thank you so much. I just think it's important to develop a connection with people that have helped you get where you are today. Um, I know a guy. I'm not going to name names because I'm not going to bash him, but I mean, I am going to bash him a little bit, but I'm not going to tell you who he is. I know a guy who recently has gotten himself where he is around a lot of stars and famous people and making a name for himself. And I had attempted to collaborate with him a few times over a number of different things, between making beats for him or just art and it always came down to the money and not the fact that we grew up together, you know, um, because we did. I've known the guy for 20 plus years. And well, now I've grown my platforms and I reached out to him again and I was like, hey man, I want to help you, but I'm not looking for a collaboration. I just want to help you. He couldn't even respond to a message. Couldn't even respond to a message. I sent him two. I was just like, well, I mean, that's kind of the way it is. If you can't even take the time to respond to somebody who you've known for 20 years, when they're offering their help, not asking anything in return, they just want to help, and you don't take the time to at least respond. Like it just kind of shows what happens when you get to once Singing Global. By the way, Singing Global, I do thank you for all of your posting. You've been doing a lot of posting on Instagram. I appreciate that, and we sync in 12 minutes. So, but yes, thank you for that. I love your videos and your pictures. They're always fun to watch on Instagram. So, um, but yeah, anyways, if you get into a role where you spend a lot of time with, people that have names for themselves, identities other than just, hello Carol from Ireland, how are you today? Don't let it go to your head. Don't forget about the people that helped get you where you are today. I got one friend of mine, his name's Joey. Joey, if you're watching on Facebook, what's up? If you're not, I'll text you. I'll talk to you at some point in time this week. But all my life, he has been like my best friend, even though we haven't seen each other. We've seen each other like three times, maybe four times in the last 15 years. And I know for a fact that if I ever were to make it big doing anything, he'd be one of the first people that, other than obviously Nikita, because she's already a part of this, but he's one of the first people that I would bring on board simply because he helped shape who I am today. He was a big influence when I was a kid. Um, which it's funny because he was younger than me, but he was popular. I wasn't popular. I was obviously not a popular kid when I was growing up. I was a nerd, spent a lot of time in, like advanced classes and doing art and things like that. So, but he was popular. So I hung out with him, not because he was popular, but it was like the role that he played in my life, him and his brother TK, um, which, and they're doing their own things, but he's the one guy that I'd bring on board and I'd have a role for him pretty much, no matter what. I've got another friend, Brandon, that I'd probably try to bring on board, but I don't know if he'd ever be interested in things like that because he's happy wrapping cars. That's what he does right now is like wrapping and painting cars. So, and I don't fuck with that. Um, but yeah, so super excited for the sync. Have you heard of the Monad call? I have not. Um, what are the chances, Nakia, you could get any information on that in the next like minute?
No.
Monad call. Carol, Nikita, my girlfriend, she's sitting right behind me. She's doing my fact checking and moderating for me. She's gonna look at it real quick and we're gonna find out what's going on there. So, but super excited. For those of you that are in here, we got 10 minutes to go until the weekly sync. We'll pause for those 5 minutes.
Oh, yeah,
And
it's pretty well in line with what we're
the
doing.
monad call is a modern Gnostic inspired spiritual technique presented as a direct integral or internal alignment with the source rather than traditional prayer. Yeah, so that's along the lines of a lot of the stuff that I've been studying. I haven't heard of that specifically. I'm going to keep doing my small part to support you, but still you're still covering a niche field, which is great. But the problem is visibility. Yeah, the problem is always going to be visibility. And that's why I just encourage everybody to continue to watch my videos, share my videos. Um, because the more engagement, say on TikTok, if you want your video to go viral, and this is something like I've done the math on the metrics, you have to have a 65% retention rate, which means that if your video is a minute long, then you need to be able to get somebody to watch that video for 35 to 40 seconds in order for it to actually count towards the retention and get it to spread. Most people talk about like the 3 second retention rate, but the truth is if you really, really, really want a video to go viral, you need a 65% of the video retention rate or better. Then, on top of that, people also need to comment and share. The reposting is great, but sharing gets it further, where you send it to like a friend through a direct message or something like that. Instagram, I'm pretty sure that they focus mainly on the 5 second retention rate, and it's only on videos that are longer than 10 seconds. That's what their main concern is. They do have metrics for actual like retention, but it seems like on Instagram, as long as people watch for that 5 seconds and engage with it, then it helps the growth. I have better luck on Instagram and Facebook with my posts than I do on TikTok. TikTok is ran by the wrong people. I will just say that, and they have suppressed all content, so it's basically impossible to get a thousand views unless you have a shit ton of followers. And like I've grown it to like 1,300 or 13,000 followers or whatever, but it's still not enough to maintain 1,000 views per video. So I don't know. I'm trying to figure out other ways because I was gonna just use the Facebook and Instagram monetization to pay for the website and everything like that. But because of their algorithms, everything just gets suppressed, and we only get so much traffic on the shop because we don't promote it. So we're still trying to figure that out because obviously, we have expenses that we got to keep up with if we're going to keep doing this, between some of the subscriptions for like the Restream service and the like our Shopify subscription things, all those things, they cost money for us. And so we just keep trying to do this and try to find ways that don't, like we'll never put our stuff under a paywall. If I have subscriptions, it's literally going to be like a fan club subscription. If you're willing to join the subscription and want to just give us $5 a month, well, then that's up to you. But we're not going to do any like special content or anything. Everything that we're ever going to do is going to be 100% free. We want everybody to have access to everything that we do all the time, no matter what. Obviously, the live streams are only the 2 times every Saturday, but we have 2 times every Saturday that people can check us live where we talk about things with Facebook, Instagram, etc. Why not partner with Amazon? Scale up so smaller profit margins. I haven't figured out the Amazon portion yet. I know that we need to re-register Weird Squared's business license this year before we can do much else, and we got some tax stuff to figure out there. So that might be a part of it. But I haven't really done much with looking into Amazon, and it's not like I'm actually partnering with them. They're paying me to just do what I do. So, and I'm not really focused on I want to be focused on the merch side. I can rewatch all your videos on TikTok and YouTube multiple times. Yeah, I mean, it does, but it doesn't. So rewatches aren't the same thing as new user watches. And then on Instagram and Facebook, followers don't help as much as non-followers do. So that's another thing about the metrics. So no, you didn't miss the sync. You've got 5 minutes, Nicole. So we're almost there. Um, yeah. So, but it's we're slowly working into all of this. There was a lot that just kind of hit us over the last month, along with just some of the other projects that we've been trying to put together. And we're not trying to do more than we can handle. We're just trying to slowly get all of this put together in a clean way, where obviously people can access it, people can participate, because we're all about public participation. That's the other thing. None of this was ever about Weird Squared or me and Nikita. This was about creating a space where people knew they could go every single week to connect with people who were similar minded and just wanted something better. But then it also gives me the opportunity to help give you guys information, uh, you know, in mass. So, um, yeah, so that's just kind of the point where we're trying to get to right now. because I do believe there's a better way. I do believe that a peaceful world is way more profitable and way more just sustainable than where we're at now. When you just look at the metrics of what it actually costs to like feed everyone versus the um, uh, gross domestic, the GDP or whatever of or the revenue of the entire planet, and you think about that over the span of a year, like plus how much waste we have. Think about how much food waste we have. I've worked in restaurants most of my life, and I've seen the stuff that gets thrown out. It's like, and why are people starving? So these are just some of the things that I hope one day that maybe I can make an impact in, um, along with global peace and things like that. I don't claim to have all the answers, but man, I got some unique perspectives. I got some ideas. I got a lot of big ideas. I mean, I've got a 400-page political policy manual right now called that's what the Vision 2028 USA website was all about. And it just kind of goes over some ideas that I've got for policy changes from, using performance metrics for politicians to switching our military from being, over the seas at bases to have them here building infrastructure. Stop spending money on wars and let's start spending money on the infrastructure in America and use the people we already pay to do it so that we're not, um, wasting all of that money bombing countries and we're getting the United States, our highways, our power grid, everything upgraded to something that's a lot more sustainable. Something that, people can actually thrive in. Because right now it's so hard to thrive in our economy when, I mean, just the potholes in our roads are destroying our cars, and that's an extra expense that we just don't want to have to afford. So, eventually we'll get there though. It's all a matter of time. Everything takes time and collaboration, obviously engagement. And it just goes to show, I have, these streams are not, you know, huge by any means, but there's definitely people showing up every single weekend to hang out with us and, listen to what I have to say. So that shows there's an interest. And like Son of God Dies was saying on Instagram, is it's definitely a niche market. There are a lot of people who talk about like one side or the other, or they only, look at it, spiritually or towards the meditation side. Well, I'm trying to wrap it all together, but then translate it into a way so that anybody can understand the idea behind the, global consciousness and global collaboration. We're not in competition with each other. We're all here. We all live on the same planet and we're all in it together. So, um, looks like the clock's about to switch. We got just a few seconds, 45 seconds. So, get ready. If you're on TikTok, double tap that screen, comment, write whatever you want. Let's go ahead and get some engagement going on these streams because, like I said, all your guys' engagement is what helps us keep growing and keeping everything free for you so that you have access to everything all the time. We love you guys. We definitely need to work on collaboration more and just helping more people in general. Just doing, nice things for everybody. So, but we're so, I'm so grateful for each and every person that's here, that's followed me. But the clock switched, so we're gonna get started. Peace, love, unity, respect. 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 All right, that was our 5 minutes. It always feels so good right after you get done with those 5 minutes. And all you've been thinking about are those 4 words. Now, those are the 4 words that we do. We don't anticipate that everyone's going to do those same words. Everybody should make it their own. You can use peace, love, unity, respect. It's definitely a great start. But try to make it your own. If that week you're feeling that you're struggling financially, well, include the word wealth or something along those lines. Because that's how we take and we turn our words and our intentions and we turn them into reality. The first step is always going to be belief. And one of the easiest ways to start believing something is to really sit down and think about it. Think about it for 5 minutes. Well, one of the easiest ways to actually think about something for 5 minutes is to vocalize it, to actually say it out into the world because you're so caught up focusing on what you're saying that you stop actually thinking about everything and thinking about everything that you're not trying to think about. So that's why it's always important. I saw Heart and Two Dragons. Yeah, I do want to thank everybody. There was let's see, Allie, thank you for the heart me. Susan, Allie, thank you for the 3 puffs. Jen, thank you for the wink. Georgia Lynn, thank you for the heart me. Jen, thank you for the rose. I appreciate all you guys over here on TikTok for those. Um, so yeah. Uh, and obviously, thanks to all of the viewers on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and on TikTok. We appreciate you guys just being here. And this is what we're hoping for is just a place for everybody to come, hang out. You know, everybody is more than welcome to comment, and we try to, wow, what a different feeling on the live stream. As soon as you said the word peace, I started to cry. Yeah, it's been a very emotional last month and a half. I don't think I've ever cried so much in my life, but it's kind of one of those things that, you just have to learn how to release it. And like I was saying before, when you vocalize something and you kind of let your mouth take over and focus on your words rather than focusing on the noise that's going on in the world, you tend to start have a realization or realizations about where you are in life, what's actually going on in your life, and that's why, we say make it your own because you just never know what realization you might actually come to when you're focusing on something for just 5 minutes. 5 minutes of time, and that's really all it takes. It's just long enough to get your brain to actually really zone in on what you need, but it's not so long that it actually disrupts your life in any meaningful way. If anything, it's an important 5 minutes that you should take every day and just hang out and really think about what's going on and reflect on what you're actually fighting for in this world. Because just about every person that I've talked to, they're more focused about what they're fighting against, what we're trying to combat, what we're trying to defeat, what we're trying to prevent, from overtaking the planet. But we're starting to lose sight of what the ultimate end goal is, and that is to have a peaceful world that's sustainable, where we can walk freely and be accepted for who we are and not be, berated or, um, just having anybody look down on us because of what we believe, whether it be a cultural belief or, a religious belief or anything like that. So, because there's already enough of that in the world. So that's why we have this space, because this space isn't that. We are here because I really think that change happens from just the small actions, those 5 minute actions of reflection every single day that each person takes. And if we can get enough people to do it more frequently, it's all going to start to add up and we'll start seeing a noticeable change in the world around us. We will. The psychology says so, the sociology says so, um, and even biologically, when you talk about like the way that our brains work, there is real science behind collective intention, collective consciousness, what emotional contagion. Do you do this every day at noon? I do this every Saturday. It would if you're noon, so you're Central Time America. So at noon and 8 p.m. every Saturday. BK Lynn God, Brooklyn God, I'm assuming maybe. I don't know. Um, and then on May 16th, we have a 24-hour one that's going to happen. We call it the Wave. So that's it's a Saturday, but it's going to be a wave of energy every hour around the planet per time zone. So, but yes, we do these every week. Uh, Brooklyn is my name. God and love are my dogs' names. Oh, that's pretty dope. Oh, I see it now. Okay. Well, yes, so every weekend, every Saturday, Sunday for people in Australia and New Zealand, because we do sync globally. There are people from all over the world that stop in and hang out with us. If you want, you guys can put where you're from in the chat so that people can kind of see where everybody's from and see where people are connecting from. We are in Minnesota. We are in the Twin Cities. So yeah, that's where we're looking. Oh, you're out in St. Paul? Yeah, we're over in Minneapolis, just north of Minneapolis, Columbia Heights. There you go, Nikita. You got a friend.
Yay, hi.
Nikita's in the chat. Uh, she'll probably talk to you and get some information. Um, But yeah, so like I said, that's what we're here. We're here to create a positive space. We're trying to get people to expand their minds. We don't want to change people. We don't want people to change who they are unless obviously morally and ethically you're fucked in the head. That's a big difference. But if you're good people and you're just looking for real connection with people around the globe, that could help either help you be successful in whatever it is you do or just create meaningful, friendships or things like that, well, you're in the right place because that's what this place is for. That's what we eventually hope to build on a grand scale. And we're not going to put it behind some paywall like every other app and every other website and we're not going to do that. We really think that if you get to a point where you contribute enough to society, eventually society will, in its own way, contribute back, which is why I emphasize, if you see our videos, watch them all the way through, give them a like and a share, because that's the biggest way that anybody can contribute to us. It costs $0, and normally my videos don't last more than a minute, minute and a half. A lot of them are shorter, but it helps in a meaningful way. So, and I should get back to posting regularly, hopefully this week. Once the first week is gone and I'm, through the full nicotine withdrawal is done. I don't really have the issue like with my hands, that issue. It's always just been the nicotine withdrawal. So, but we're getting there. And I know like when I get off the live stream, I'll probably hop on Call of Duty. Oh, we appreciate that, Phoenix. We love you too. We love all you guys. Everybody that's been in here and has followed us over this last month and a half journey, that continues to share our content. Are you trying to quit smoking? I need help with that. Yes, I am trying to quit smoking. I am on day 4. I think it's been a full 4 days now. I went on the patch because of the nicotine withdrawal, but so far, not bad. I'm actually, now that I think about it, I didn't even put a new patch on. So I'm wearing a patch that's like a day and a half old now. And I've made it already through half the day. Because the other thing about me, like I wake up extremely early most days. Most days I'm up anywhere between 2 and 4 a.m. Um, I just can't sleep. Once I'm awake, I'm awake. Once I'm asleep, I'm asleep. There is no, I'm gonna lay in bed for 5 minutes or an hour. That's Nikita, not me. I get up, I have to be awake, I have to move around. So I come out and, I do work, whether it's, lately I've been writing my blog in the morning times. I'll sit down and take my outline and all my facts and stuff that I found and stop by Art Price Printing there in
Nice.
Northeast Minneapolis. I haven't. I'm sure that you know, probably make it out there sometime. So, um,
Oh, Art World plans?
art prints, art price printing.
No, I'm asking if they are going to attend Art Overall.
Oh,
That's coming up.
yeah. Are you anybody in Minneapolis that wants to go to Art World? Oh, that's the other thing. So if you are in the Twin Cities, we are considering doing a thing for May Day, where we will meet up at Powderhorn Park and do our plur out loud as a group. I need to get some flyers put together for that. But if you are in the Twin Cities area, when we put that out, if you could share it with everyone so that we can see if we could get a large gathering, I think that would make for a pretty amazing experience to get a large group of people to peace, love, and unity, respect all at the park at the same time. So we're putting that together. I'll try to get that information out this week, along with more information about the Missing Peace Project, but ultimately all of the information for that will be released on April 20th. So, if you didn't hear about what that is a public collaboration project, and it is a public storytelling project, kind of like a documentary, where we are going to work with anywhere between 500 and 1,000 other creators, people, artists, in a number of different mediums. We will be looking for things like video footage, music, poetry, commentary, live commentary, on a number of, I guess, on a number of different topics, but surrounding the idea of peace. Um, you know, we will have some minor restrictions on, what can be used. We won't use any AI of any kind. Um, it needs to be authentically yours. Um, we would prefer that the recording quality is decent. We don't need it to be perfect, but I don't need a shaking camera like my videos all over the place for this. We're looking for meaningful videos that could be a part of this, and we're going to piece it together. Probably be like an hour and a half, 2 hour long documentary. So that's all the details will be released about that in the towards the end of April. So, um, hey, how's it going, Hard Truth? How are you today? Yeah, I'd be looking. looking for more information on that, and if you know anybody that is a writer or a musician or, just wants to, get a chance to, be a part of something bigger, get some exposure, this is going to be a great opportunity. I know I don't have, you know, you're only 8 hours away from me. Maybe I can make it 8 hours. Chicago or Laura, Wisconsin. Oh, Georgia Lynn. Mm, Georgia's more than 8 hours away, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
Can I join? I do meditations. Join where? Oh, St. Louis, yeah. Christina, join where?
Movement is always open to be joined.
Yeah, I mean, our movement, anybody can join. There are no restrictions to joining our movement other than this is a peaceful place. We're not here to do the same thing that's in every other live stream and every other, place out there. Um, where it's just everybody kind of has their clique or their groups. Like, we are open to everyone. We created the 5 minute pause, um, simply because we wanted it to be as inclusive. When you think about people with disabilities that want to make a difference or want to be a part of any movement, but they can't because they're limited to what they can do. Even, people that have disabilities can do this. Children can do this. Your grandma can do this. I once heard this saying that, um, yeah, I once saw this saying that if you want to know if something is trending or how big it is, just ask your grandparents. You ask probably one out of every 100 grandparents right now, they'll tell you that they participated in the Great Synchronization. I guarantee you that there was enough grandparents that it was amazing. And I hear a lot of, well, I mean, people that are my age, I guess, because I'm getting up there where I'll probably have grandkids in the next 5 years. And um, but yeah, it's been such an amazing and wonderful experience, and to be able to interact with people from all over the globe. I wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to do something more meaningful, but I again didn't want it to be about just me. I want to tell your guys' story. I want to show the world what peace actually looks like from the perspective of ordinary people. Because when you think about like the media that you watch, the news, what's on television, Netflix, everything is catered to your country and your country's policies and your country's ideologies. So you see these skewed perspectives of countries all over the globe, whether you're in America thinking about China or Russia or Japan or anything like that, or vice versa, if how America's perceived as the fattest place on earth. Um, so when you look at it that way, it would just be nice to be able to show people what the world really looks like from the perspective of ordinary people, not mainstream media. So and that's where the idea for this documentary kind of came about. And I don't know, I think it could be a really beautiful thing. And I mean, and truthfully, the reason why I got the idea was me and Nikita were talking about, I don't know how many of you are in here that remember the Al Gore Bush election, but imagine how different the world would be right now if Al Gore had won that election and became president, considering how close it actually was in all the recounts. Well, then I was thinking about his documentary about, global warming and the impact that that had, and I was like, well, I mean, if anybody was going to make a documentary about peace, it might as well be me. And so, yeah, I think that's what we're going to do, and I'm super excited. I really want to get as many people involved as possible. Um, to try to bring this into a fruition into the next like year. I think a year would be realistic to gather all the material and get it put together, edited, come up with a storyboard, all the narration. Um, but we'll see. Like I said, more details coming. If not, there's the wave still and the weekly syncs and my blog. Go check out my blog. Like I said, there's only 5 posts right now, but in about a month, there's going to be an entire story between the blogs that take you through what's wrong with the system, why it feels off, why nobody feels like they belong at their job anymore, and how we're going to get out of it and move to a small business renaissance where we help each other, we collaborate, we cooperate, and we just forget about the billionaires in terms of how important they are, and we let them crumble. We just let them fall apart on their own. We don't need to influence anything more than a better future for our children and a better future for us. That's why I do all of this is because I want my kids and Nikita's kids to grow up in a better world. You know, it seems kind of selfish, but at the same time, I'm doing it for your guys' kids too because we all deserve it, and everybody else feeds on this chaos. I mean, there's even a lot of the large content creators. When you talk about like the news, people that report the news, or political commentary, even nowadays, it's all propagandized. Every last little bit of it. So I love like the Midas Touch and Aaron Parnas. I think that they do a wonderful job with what they do, but I've had a hard time watching a lot of the videos because of how propagandized they feel now. Um, it's one thing to be passionate about what you do. It's another to use the hype around a topic to try to gain a following, to maintain engagement. Like I will always try to hype up the 5 minutes of our pause because that's our thing. But I'm not doing it for followers. I'm not doing it for engagement. I'm doing it because the energy behind what we're doing matters. I really feel like the energy that we put into this every single weekend collectively matters more than anything that we do. The words, it's all about what we put out into the world. So that's what we're working on trying to do. And we're trying to build this, what Nikita called it was or connecting the collective. We're finding the people that want to be involved in the collective consciousness or the Great Reset or anything of that nature. And we are trying to find a way to connect us so that we can all grow through this together. Grow in knowledge, grow in wealth, grow in experience. So, but anyways, I think I am going to call it for this one. We will be back live in about 6.5 hours for anybody that wants to join in on the next one. If not, we will see you next weekend. We do appreciate everybody on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, TikTok who showed up today, who joined in on the synchronization. If you missed it, like I said, you got another opportunity in about 6.5 hours for this weekend. We love you guys. We appreciate all the gifts on TikTok, the badges, everything, the stars. We hope you have a wonderful day, and we will talk to everybody soon.